Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emmanuel Johnson, President of the GW Veterans.
I'd like to start with the quote from our namesake. The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation. I apologize. Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Johnson. I'm the president of GW Vets, the GW chapter of Student Veterans of America. I'm proud to welcome you all to the George Washington University, a school that consistently sets the bar for what it means to be a veteran-friendly campus. I ran into President Knapp yesterday on the elevator, or I should say Friday, and like any good SVA chapter president, I started my elevator pitch and to tell him about all the good things that he could help us do for veterans. And one of the things I told him about is how me and Admiral Williams are working very close together for priority registration for veterans. And I expected some, political answer like, keep up the good work. But he told me to keep the fight going because he really wanted to show everybody how to do this thing the right way. And with him saying that, veterans feel that all throughout this campus, from office hours with their professors to the wonderful ladies that work the front desk at Colonial Central. So on behalf of GW veterans, I thank everybody at George Washington for their graciousness. With that being said, there's no better place to release the beginnings of the findings for the Million Records Project. SVA's initiative to track and analyze the performance of student veterans in higher education. We're going to hear from several distinguished speakers today. They will outline the SVA's research in filling a critical need to baseline the information on how veterans are doing in college and what they need to achieve their goals on campus after graduation. Now let's get started. It is my honor to introduce Rodrigo Garcia, Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Student Veterans of America. Rodrigo is a Marine Corps veteran with 3 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and currently serves as a member of the Illinois Cabinet overseeing 1,300 plus staff at the Illinois Department of Veteran Affairs. A lot of people don't know, me and Rodrigo share a special connection. We both grew up in inner city Chicago. And anybody who knows that knows you wear that with a badge of honor, and Rodrigo does. I jokingly told somebody that after I met him at the SVA conference that I never felt more at home in Scottsdale, Arizona than I did talking to Rodrigo. After I left the conversation I had with him, people began to talk about the article he did in the Daily Beast. And I immediately ran to my room, got on my laptop and read it. And one of the big things he mentioned was the post-World War II GI Bill educated roughly 10 million returning veterans, among them 14 Nobel Prize winners, 24 Pulitzer Prize winners, 3 presidents, 12 senators, and 3 Supreme Court justices. With the work he and the SVA are doing, we will more than double those numbers for the post-9/11 GI Bill recipients and create a new greater generation. Please help me give a warm colonial welcome to Rodrigo Garcia.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, these are some bright lights up here, so that's great because I don't know who's in the crowd, so don't mind me if I stumble here. So good afternoon. My name is Rodrigo Garcia. I am the chairman of the board for Student Veterans of America, an organization I've been intimately involved with since its founding in early 2008. We're so pleased you're here with us today to learn more about student veterans in general and specifically here for the Million Records Project. Now, on more than 980 campuses currently, and I'm pretty sure will continue to grow in the months ahead, veterans have exchanged boots for books. They've exchanged their guard towers for the ivory tower. They're using the drive and the discipline learned in the military to go on and earn diplomas, credentials, and licenses, and so forth. They are continuing like their predecessors In the greatest generation, I believe this generation of student veterans will go on to lead the next great wave of American progress, the next revitalization. And in the process, they'll help find their families, and they'll help their families achieve their dreams and strengthen communities across the country, thousands of communities where our student veterans are going to school. We hear it a lot these days about work-life balance, and it's something that everyone here should not be a stranger to, especially not our student veterans. Student veterans know what it meant, what that term meant before people began to use it, before they began to coin the phrase work-life balance. It's something that has been ingrained for decades. They juggle service to their country with their studies, their work, and family obligations. They can teach us a lot, but we also must learn a lot from them. The Million Records Project is the first in-depth look at the academic achievements of today's generation of student veterans. Now, this would not have been done with our various gracious partners at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, as well as the National Student Clearinghouse. We at the Student Veterans of America are analyzing with our partners how student veterans are performing, and also what else needs to be done to ensure that they continue to progress, not only at current standards, but even at increased standards. Today, we're releasing just the first set of findings of many to come. Baseline measures of how our student veterans graduate, how long it takes them, plus the types of school that they're attending, majors that they've chosen, and the types of the degrees that they're earning. Over the next year, this Million Records Project will build on this baseline data to determine the policies and programs that work for student veterans. Just imagine what our administrators and our policy makers, as well as policy implementers, will be able to do with this type of information. But student veterans are not just a point on a graph. We must be able to put faces to them. You have to really meet some of the student veterans out in the heartland and in various coasts to understand. I'm going to tell you about one inspiring individual. His name is Chester Curtis from the state of Washington, which actually I was just in yesterday. When he was 19, Chester enlisted, and that's key. So when he joined the Army, enlisted at age 19 as a combat engineer, served 4 years, including deployments to Afghanistan. He left the military in 2011. A job that he had lined up fell through. So he was looking for the next opportunity. And he saw what the post-9/11 GI Bill provided, and he saw that education as a means to opportunity. So unlike so many traditional students, he had very few resources beyond the post-9/11 GI Bill. So when he went seeking for additional resources, he found SVA. He found a cohort of like-minded student veterans at Edmonds Community College that allowed him to continue, and he found a beacon of light. But Chester's service set him apart from others. He had been diagnosed with PTS after the Army, and he knew it was difficult. But through SVA and the cohort of student veterans that surrounded him at that school, he flourished. He ensured that not only he surrounded himself with peers that allowed him to succeed, but he utilized that same strength to ensure that others succeeded as well. He ensured that he stayed true to the values that were instilled in him in the United States Army. He stayed true to his peers and ensured that just like he was helped, that he was helping others, and that his service did not stop when he took off that uniform, that he continued a tradition of service, a tradition that defines SVA not only in all 50 states, but in countries abroad as well. Now, today, with the support, he has graduated with his associate's degree. He has gone on and found a career in energy. In energy, obviously, we know it's a high-growth field. Him and his fiancée are continuing that journey. And we know that his journey doesn't stop here. We know that in the future, when he decides that he has all the proper supports in place, he'll continue on for another degree. But now, this is just one story of a timeline of stories you'll hear about today. And before I continue, I want to take a moment, because we have to realize that our partners, the VA and the National and the NSC and SVA, wouldn't have been able to do what we do here today, and we wouldn't have been able to launch the Million Records Project if it wasn't for the generous support of organizations like Google, organizations like Raytheon, the Kresge Foundation, the Lumina Foundation. These partners have allowed us to move forward, and they have generated and donated to this campaign over $2 million in support of the Million Records Project that will allow us to move this phase and several phases forward. So definitely, let's give them a round of applause. They know and they understand that this research provides a foundation as we move forward. It provides a foundation to be able to extrapolate the type of strategies and the types of programs that will ensure that our student veterans succeed for years and decades to come. Now, of course, we're also here at one of the beacons of higher education at the George Washington University. We're very grateful to GW for continuing to be a gracious host, not only today, but in years past. We owe a debt of gratitude to them as well. Now, as you heard from Manny, our chapters are the backbone of our organization. Over 980, they are the backbone of SVA, and I have to give them a shout out because GW Bets has been consistently one leading from the forefront and consistently applying new strategies and always consistently ensuring that SVA is a strong force here on the GW campus. Now, as we continue the program, it is my distinct honor to introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Court Coy, who is the Deputy Undersecretary for Economic Opportunity at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. Now, Mr. Coy and his team have been with us from the very beginning, every step of the way, and we look forward to our continued partnership on behalf of America's veterans. Mr. Coy has a long and distinguished career to serve our nation, beginning as an enlisted member of the United States Air Force and then commissioning into the Navy, where he retired at the rank of commander. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me provide a warm welcome to Mr. Curtis Coy.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Manny, for your leadership here at GW. Thank you, Rodrigo, for that kind introduction. And Wayne, thank you for your leadership of this important event. We're here today to talk about the Million Record Project. Through this project, SVA is providing an important voice in the effort to track and report on the academic outcomes of veteran students. This is a great example of a public-private partnership. It provides a validation of evidence-based approach to this national conversation we have on veterans. We have validated that veterans are motivated. They're focused, and regardless of the odds, continue to persist and achieve. This comes to no surprise to this 24-year Navy veteran, but I want to make clear that the investment of these veterans are critical to the economic success of this country. These results in future research will help inform best practices on campuses aimed at increasing success for these veterans. Our country has invested since August of 2009 more than $39 billion of post-9/11 GI Bill benefits to fund the education of over 1.1 million beneficiaries, to bolster the transition of our nation's veterans. These students are expected to fuel the economic success of our country for years to come. From the Montgomery GI Bill to the post-9/11 GI Bill, VA offers a robust variety of education and training benefits for veterans with a wide range of educational goals, including certificate programs, post-secondary degrees, and work-study programs. This report is another piece in the matrix of veteran economic success. It is a reflection that VA is not doing this alone. Our partnerships in the past several years have been critical. These partnerships include corporate leaders, non-critical or critical nonprofits, community leaders, Chamber of Commerce leaders, and government agencies. We partner with leaders who have a common commitment to long-term veteran prosperity. SVA is one of those key partners. To be clear, veterans are in the driver's seat of their future. Our focus is on ensuring that student veterans are informed consumers in choosing a school and career path and leveraging the VA benefits they've so richly earned. Students can now use the interest and aptitude test called CareerScope, available online at the GI Bill website. From there, prospective students can use our Choosing the Right School guide to identify key factors to consider when making a final determination as to where to go to school. Also online, our new comparison tool. It allows beneficiaries to compare educational institutions on factors such as cost, student veteran enrollment, graduation rates, mean borrowing, and loan default rates to find the best fit for them. We have already had more than 100,000 visitors to this site in less than 2 months. Let's not forget the critical role educational and training institutions are playing on veterans' success on campus. VA is working with schools, higher education organizations, our SAA, state approving agencies, and other partners to ensure that veterans have all the information they need to best utilize their VA education benefits. So far, more than 6,000 educational institutions have agreed to the President's Principles of Excellence, which offer guidelines that promote transparency and student success. In addition, more than 260 schools have already adopted the President's 8 Keys to Success that provides 8 concrete steps that institutions of higher education can use to help veterans and service members transition into the classroom and thrive once they're there. VA's Vet Success on Campus program places an experienced vocational rehabilitation counselor on the campus to address the needs of all student veterans. It has grown from a pilot of 8 sites to now 94 sites across the country. So we are helping veterans choose the right school and to succeed in their educational pursuits. We're also making strides in tracking successful outcomes of student veterans. We continue to work with our agency partners at DoD and the Department of Education to develop student veteran outcome measures to follow how veterans are doing while in school, when they graduate, and after graduation. In closing, there's a role for all of us to engage in this conversation. If you're a nonprofit or a potential corporate sponsor, continue to use evidence like this to drive your programs and priorities. If you are an educational institution, engage in the 8 keys and the principles of excellence. If you are a business or community leader, seek ways to connect and hire our highly skilled veterans. And if you're a veteran, get informed. Use your well-earned benefits, persist and achieve, and know that the VA and the SVA in your country has your back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coy, for your partnership, and then obviously for those eloquent words. Very nicely done. SVA is definitely looking forward to the continued partnership with VA as we continue to move forward with the Million Records Project, as well as many other endeavors and initiatives in 2014 and beyond. Now, I am pleased and honored to introduce to you SVA's President and CEO, and a good friend, Mr. D. Wayne Robinson, who will discuss the results of this academic research. Very historic in nature type of research, I would say. Now, Wayne served in the U.S. Army, I don't fault him for that, for over 26 years, reaching the rank, the pinnacle of all ranks, the Command Sergeant Major rank. He graduated from the University of Chicago, the Booth School of Business, which is often ranked by many leading magazines as the #1 business school in the entire world. And he graduated from there. And that it just shows you the testament of what our veterans can do today. Now, prior to his current role as president and CEO of SVA, he was on SVA's advisory board, where he lent his expertise and his experience to a thriving and growing organization that it continues to here today. So please join me in welcoming Mr. D. Wayne Robinson.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here today. And I did not write those opening remarks from Rodrigo, but I appreciate them. And thank you also to those joining us online. SVA established the Million Records Project to ultimately determine the best practices and policies that promote student veteran success. Today's data release provides baseline measurements of student veteran achievement, rates of completion, time to completion, highest degree attained, and majors or degree fields. Subsequent research will aim to better understand the on-campus experience of student veterans and the main challenges that they face as they transition from service to classroom and from classroom to workforce. With this information, SVA and key partners like the VA, National Student Clearinghouse, and the Institute for Veterans and Military Families will delve deeper into student veteran outcomes to determine the policies, practices, and services that best promote student veteran success on campus and in preparation for the workforce. SVA envisioned, planned, and executed the Million Records Project. The VA identified 1 million veterans that used the Montgomery GI Bill or the post-9/11 GI Bill between the time period of 2002 and 2010, and using appropriate guidelines to protect privacy, sent their education records to the National Student Clearinghouse. The NSC matched those records with institutional enrollment and completion data, removed institutional identifying information, and sent the records back to the VA. The VA in turn scrubbed all personal identifying information and sent the records back to us at SVA. We then analyzed the data and produced this report. Student veterans are the quintessential non-traditional student. We face numerous challenges as we progress toward graduation. Similar to other non-traditional populations, many delay their enrollment in higher education due to military service. They have families or are single parents, which can result in part-time enrollment and the need to balance jobs on top of school, and some have service-connected disabilities. But unlike other non-traditional students, many veterans have to temporarily withdraw from school to fulfill military obligations as National Guardsmen or reservists. Take, for example, Abby Kench. Abby served as a Chinese linguist in the Air Force for more than 2 years before leaving to have her first child. Today, Abby attends classes part-time at Florida State University while caring for 2 children and working full-time to support her family. Abby is the perfect example of a student veteran who successfully keeps many balls in the air while attending school. She is also a member of SVA's Student Council. Still, we are excited to report that despite these challenges, 51.7% of today's veterans are completing their programs of study, and we're confident that this number will continue to grow as time passes and post-9/11 GI Bill users have the opportunity to earn their degrees. I'm very proud to report this number. So can we give our veterans a round of applause? Thank you. To all our veterans in the audience on campus and throughout the nation. Let's take a deeper look at how those military commitments shape a veteran's path to graduation in a way that varies greatly from traditional students. As illustrated in Path Alpha, some join the military immediately after high school and delay enrollment in higher education until after the military service. This allows them to complete their education in a time frame similar to traditional students. Path Alpha probably looks most familiar to the majority of Americans. Today's military, however, relies heavily on reservists and members of the National Guard. Path Beta shows that some student veterans join the National Guard or Reserve and simultaneously enroll in school. As they progress toward a degree, they are mobilized for multiple deployments, forcing them to temporarily withdraw from their studies, thus extending their educational path far beyond that of a traditional student. Others, like those in Path Gamma, enrolled in school, but ultimately chose to put their studies on hold before to join the military, lengthening their time to completion significantly due to 4, 6, or even, like myself, more than 20 years of service. And there are variations to all of these pathways. Take, for example, Chris Hines. Chris is a former Army Cav Scout who served 4 years active and another 2 in the National Guard before deciding to go to school. Chris is now a full-time student at Johnson County Community College in Kansas. As he'll tell you, he's very fortunate to be able to take classes full-time without needing to work a full-time job, made possible by his wife's career. Chris expects to complete his associate's degree in 3 years, similar to those veterans who travel down Path Alpha. Or consider Kirsten Downs, an Air Force veteran who joined the Air National Guard after 4 years of active service. While pursuing her political science degree at Binghamton University in New York, Kirsten's unit was mobilized just 3 weeks before finals. And so she was forced to put her education on hold to deploy following basically Path Beta. Determined not to allow her deployments to derail her education, Kirsten worked with the university to finish the semester early. She was able to complete her degree with the university. She was able to complete her degree in 4 years, but she admits that the rush to finish these courses had an impact on her grades, ultimately affecting grad school applications. Finally, Brian Hall followed Path Gamma. He began taking courses at his local community college after high school, but decided the Air Force was his true calling. While serving as an operations resource manager, Brian completed an associate's degree at the Community College of the Air Force. When he eventually left active duty, years later, he enrolled at Penn State Mount Alto as a junior, but not all of his Air Force credits transferred. He had to retake some courses, and it took him more than 2 years to complete his bachelor's. In total, Brian's time to completion during way back to when he first enrolled in the community college was nearly 14 years. In spite of all the challenges that they face and potentially longer pathways to success, today's student veterans are completing their education. Both at the 2 and 4 year degree level, you can see how the majority of those who complete do so within 2 to 3 years and 4 to 6 years respectively. This is similar to the general population. The true story here is one of persistence. As you can see, veterans are continuing to work toward graduation, even if it takes them longer than traditional students. And as Path Beta illustrates, they may be deployed numerous times, but we come back to finish what we started. With that context in mind, let's take another look at the sample's overall completion rate of 51.7%. Veterans are completing at rates higher than their non-traditional peers and close to the general population. While we recognize that these other studies focused on specific cohort years, the Million Records Project looked at the entire sample to better reflect the various pathways we discussed earlier. The 51% is not a direct comparison with the non-traditional and traditional completion rates for 5 and 6 years respectively, but it is the best comparison we have right now. I also want to briefly point to that non-traditional data. This data is nearly 20 years old. We feel very strongly that the Million Records Project, on top of highlighting student veterans' experiences and accomplishments, can provide future insight into non-traditional students as well. We also wanted to see which sectors of higher education were attracting the most veterans. Interestingly enough, nearly 80% of the sample enrolled in public institutions, and nearly 80% of those who completed earned their degrees from a public institution. This suggests that the GI Bill's structure incentivizes student veterans to attend public colleges and universities. When we further explore where veterans are studying, we see some interesting trends that suggest all sectors of higher education can actually improve. Student veterans who started their education in the private sector had the highest likelihood of earning a degree over the course of their lifetime, followed by the public and then the proprietary sectors. But nearly 1 out of every 5 of those student veterans who started at a private school left to earn a degree in a different sector. When comparing public, private, and proprietary schools, it is actually more appropriate to look at the within-sector completion rates, which are more equitable. This is a slide that I'm actually very excited about. Let's take a look at what these degree-earning student vets are studying. Many are choosing to continue their service in the public sector, pursuing degrees in firefighting, law enforcement, and homeland security. And an even higher percentage of veterans are studying other high-growth, high-demand fields such as business, healthcare, and computer sciences, preparing them for today's competitive job market. 2 great examples of this are Jim Yager, an Army veteran who's currently completing his MBA at Seton Hill University in Pennsylvania, and Michael Stack, a Navy veteran who's on track to graduate in May with a Master's of Science and Information Systems from the University of Colorado, Denver. Jim served as an infantryman in Iraq, and upon separation set a new objective: to start a business. He knew that the GI Bill was the only way to accomplish that goal. So Jim enrolled in college, working full-time to support his family, taking classes part-time for some semesters, and he completed his undergraduate program in 5 years. Soon, he will complete his MBA, well prepared to start his own business. Michael Stack, a Navy vet, a Navy information systems technician, first earned a bachelor's of Science in Business Administration. While working as a project management consultant, Michael saw that sweeping changes in healthcare were creating opportunities for growth across the country. He realized he could advance his career by pursuing a master's in information systems with a focus on healthcare IT. In May, he'll earn that degree from the University of Colorado, Denver. Undoubtedly, Michael's commitment will get him to where he wants to be. Jim and Michael also demonstrate that veterans aren't just completing their programs, they're using their GI Bill benefits to transform lower levels of education into higher degrees. As you can see, a large percentage of our veterans are going on to earn bachelor's and master's degrees. This contradicts a fairly common belief that vets are using the GI Bill only to get certificates or on-the-job training. of student veterans who first completed a certificate, 31% continued on to higher levels of education. And of those who earned a 2-year degree, 35% continued on, and 20.8% of veterans who first earned a baccalaureate level degree went on to earn another degree at a higher level. I want to go back to Abby, the vet I told you about in the beginning of the presentation, who faced many barriers to success. I'm proud to tell you that today, despite those challenges, Abby has become a leader in her local SVA chapter and is about to complete her PhD. Abby will tell you she's had a lot of support on her path, but truly her story, like that of Chris, Kirsten, Brian, Rodrigo, and so many other student veterans, is one of persistence, perseverance, and success. So let's review. As non-traditional students, veterans face unique challenges and often follow different paths to completion. It is clear, though, that veterans are persisting in their education and graduating at levels comparable to the general population and at rates far greater than other non-traditional students. Not only are we completing, but we're pursuing high-demand degrees, making us more highly attractive in today's job market. Based on these findings, Americans can now see the value of their smart investment in student veterans. We know that more research is needed if we are to promote more positive outcomes for student veterans. In our next phase of research, we look forward to working with the VA and the National Student Clearinghouse to replicate this study, but solely for post-9/11 GI Bill beneficiaries. In partnership with the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse, we'll also be collecting direct feedback from schools to understand which programs and policies are working on campus. We plan to correlate these findings to discover the true drivers of post-secondary success for student veterans. SVA will then scale these effective services across our national network. Our insights will be useful not only for student veterans, but for non-traditional students as a whole. In closing, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. It's been an honor to have you here. Now let me invite SVA's chairman, Rodrigo Garcia, back to the lectern for some final remarks.
Excellent. So we will go ahead and close out the session. Thank you very much, Wayne. Very articulate remarks on the pathways of student veterans over the last 10 years. This is a very exciting start to the Million Records Project. You've given us a great overview of the first release of data, this first cohort of students, which you've received some of this preliminary data, and you can have access to our full report shortly as well. And I know we all look forward to having SVA continue to work on this, not only with our staff, but also with our stakeholders and our partners who make this a reality. I know that myself, the success that I've had is the education that I've been able to have thanks to the GI Bill, which has provided me with many opportunity. And I was just telling a few folks backstage that when I left the military and I went from having 50 Marines, I had to go work at Pizza Hut as a part-time job. So not only do I get to add financial management, policy making, and leadership, now I could add pizza making skills to my GI Bill. So thank you for that. So once again, I'd like to thank our sponsors and our partners for their support. It is invaluable, and it ensures that we continue to move the needle forward. And thanks for all of you to join us here in the auditorium, and to the many hundreds that are online joining us as well. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us here today. Now, we do invite you to watch either through visiting our website or by signing up at studentveterans.org and signing up for the newsletter, just going up there for periodic updates, for future updates on the Million Records Project, as well as other endeavors that we have lined up for 2014. In addition, we will also be hosting a Twitter chat on Wednesday at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, Wednesday, 2:15 Eastern Standard Time for our Twitter chat. For For those here in the auditorium, unfortunately does not apply to those folks joining us online. We invite you upstairs to the Brady Art Gallery for a reception. Dr. Chris Kate, our lead researcher and someone who's been with us for several years, will be there along with SVA's leadership, the staff, the several board members, as well as several advisory board members and other stakeholders to answer questions about the Million Records Project. We look forward to seeing you there, and I will be there as well. And we appreciate, again, your support. We thank you. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.